The Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time there were 3 little pigs. 3 brothers. All the same height, round, pink, with the same cheerful tails. Even their names were alike. They were called Nif Nif, Nuff Nuff, and Nuff Nuff. All summer long they were tumbling in the green grass, basking in the sunshine, lounging in puddles. But then came the fall. The sun was no longer so hot, gray clouds stretched over the yellowed forest. "It is time for us to think about winter," Nuff Nuff said to his brothers when he woke up early in the morning. "I'm shivering with cold. We could catch a cold. Let's build a house and spend the winter together under one warm roof." But his brothers didn't want to get to work. "It is much nicer to walk and jump in the meadow during the last warm days than to dig the ground and carry heavy stones. We'll get on with it. Winter is still a long way off." "We'll go for a walk," said Nif Nif and tumbled over his head. "When I need to, I will build my own house," said Nuff Nuff and lay down in a puddle. "Me too," added Nif Nif. "Well, as you wish." "Then I will build my house alone," said Nuff Nuff. "I will not wait for you." Every day it got colder and colder. But Nif Nif and Nuff Nuff were in no hurry. They didn't even want to think about work. They lazed around from morning till night. All they did was play their piglet games, jumping and tumbling. "Today we will have another walk," they said, "and tomorrow morning we will get down to business." But the next day they said the same thing. And only when the big puddle by the road began to be covered with a thin crust of ice in the morning, the lazy brothers finally got down to work. Nif Nif decided that it would be easier and more likely to make a house out of straw. Without consulting anyone, he did so. By evening his hut was ready. Nif Nif put the last straw on the roof and, very satisfied with his house, sang merrily. "You can go halfway around the world. Hashtag you'll go around hashtag. You'll never find a better home. You won't find one, you won't find one." Singing this song, he went to Nuff Nuff. Nuff Nuff was also building a house nearby. He tried to finish this boring and uninteresting job as soon as possible. At first, like his brother, he wanted to build a house of straw. But then he decided that such a house would be very cold in winter. The house would be stronger and warmer if it was made of twigs and thin rods. So he did. He hammered stakes into the ground, intertwined them with twigs, piled dry leaves on the roof, and by evening the house was ready. Nuff Nuff proudly walked around it a few times and sang. "I have a good house. A new house, a sturdy house. I'm not afraid of rain and thunder. Rain and thunder, rain and thunder." Before he could finish his song, Nif Nif came running out of the bush. "Well, your house is ready," said Nif Nif to his brother. "I told you we could do it alone. Now we're free to do whatever we want. Let's go to Nuff Nuff's house and see what kind of house he's built," said Nuff Nuff. "We haven't seen him for a long time. Let's go and see," agreed Nuff Nuff. And the 2 brothers, satisfied that they didn't have to worry about anything else, hid behind the bushes. Nif Nif had been busy building for days. He had piled up stones, kneaded clay, and now he was slowly building a strong, sturdy house to shelter himself from the wind, rain, and frost. He made a heavy oak door with a deadbolt so that a wolf from the neighboring forest could not get in. Nif Nif and Nuff Nuff caught his brother at work. "What are you building?" shouted in one voice surprised Nif Nif and Nuff Nuff. "What is it, a house for the piglet or a fortress?" "A piglet's house must be a fortress," Nuff Nuff answered them calmly, continuing his work. Aren't you going to fight someone? Grunted Niff Niff and winked at Nuff Nuff. And the two brothers were so happy that their squealing and grunting spread far and wide across the lawn. And Nuff Nuff continued laying the stone wall of his house as if nothing had happened, purring a little song to himself. I am, of course, the cleverest. I'm the smartest, I'm the smartest, I'm the smartest. I'm building my house of stones. Of stones, of stones. There's no beast in the world. No beast, no beast, no beast, no beast. No beast will come through that door. This door, this door, this door. What kind of beast is he talking about? Niff Niff asked Niff Niff. What kind of beast are you talking about? Nuff Nuff asked Nuff Nuff. I mean the wolf, answered Nuff Nuff and laid another stone. Look how afraid of the wolf he is, said Nuff Nuff. He is afraid of being eaten, said Nuff Nuff. And the brothers cheered up even more. What wolves could there be here? Said Niff Niff. There are no wolves. He's just a coward, added Nuff Nuff. And they both began to dance and sing. We're not afraid of the gray wolf. The gray wolf, the gray wolf. Where do you go, silly wolf? Old wolf, scary wolf. They wanted to tease Nuff Nuff, but Nuff Nuff didn't even turn around. Come on, Nuff Nuff, said Nuff Nuff. There's nothing for us to do here. And the two brave brothers went for a walk. On the way they sang and danced, and when they entered the forest, they made so much noise that they woke up the wolf, who was sleeping under a pine tree. What's all this noise? The angry and hungry wolf grumbled and galloped to the place where the squealing and grunting of two silly little piglets were coming from. Well, what wolves can there be here? Said Niff Niff, who had only seen wolves in pictures. If we grab him by the nose, he will know, added Nuff Nuff, who had also never seen a live wolf. We'll knock him down, and then we'll tie him up, and then we'll kick him like this, bragged Niff Niff and showed how they would deal with the wolf. And the brothers cheered up again and sang. We're not afraid of the gray wolf. The gray wolf, the gray wolf. Where do you go, silly wolf? Old wolf, dreadful wolf. And suddenly they saw a real live wolf. He stood behind a big tree, and he had such a scary look, such evil eyes and such a toothy mouth that Niff Niff and Niff Nuff ran a chill down their backs and their thin tails trembled a little. The poor piglets couldn't even move out of fear. The wolf prepared to jump, snapped his teeth, blinked his right eye, but the piglets suddenly came to their senses and, squealing throughout the forest, rushed away. They had never run so fast before. With their heels shining and raising clouds of dust, the piglets ran toward their homes. Niff Niff was the first to reach his straw hut and barely had time to slam the door in the wolf's face. Now open the door, growled the wolf, or I'll break it down. No, grunted Niff Niff, I will not open the door. Behind the door you could hear the breathing of the terrible beast. Now open the door, roared again Wolf, or I'll blow so much that your whole house will blow. But Niff Niff could not answer from fear. Then the wolf began to blow, "Foo-you-you-you-you-you-you-you." Straws flew off the roof of the house and the walls of the house shook. The wolf took another deep breath and blew a second time, "Foo-you-you-you-you-you-you." When the wolf blew a third time, the house flew in all directions as if a hurricane had hit it. The wolf snapped his teeth in front of the little pig's nickel. But Niff Niff deftly dodged and ran away. In a minute he was already at Nuff Nuff's door. The brothers had hardly had time to lock themselves in when they heard the wolf's voice. "Well, now I'll eat you both." Nif Nif and Nuff Nuff looked at each other fearfully. But the wolf was very tired, and so he decided to be cunning. "I've changed my mind," he said so loudly that he could be heard in the cabin. "I won't eat these skinny piglets. I'd rather go home." "Did you hear that?" Nif Nif asked Nif Nif. "He said he wouldn't eat us. We're skinny." "That's very good," said Nuff Nuff, and he stopped shivering at once. The brothers had fun and sang like nothing had happened. "We are not afraid of the gray wolf. The gray wolf, the gray wolf. Where do you go, silly wolf? Old wolf, scary wolf." But the wolf didn't think of going anywhere. He just went off to the side and hid. He was laughing. He could hardly contain himself from laughing. How cleverly he had tricked two silly little piglets. When the piglets had calmed down, the wolf took the sheepskin and crept carefully to the house. At the door he covered himself with the hide and knocked quietly. Nif Nif and Nuff Nuff were very frightened when they heard the knock. "Who is there?" they asked, and their tails shook again. "It's me, poor little sheep," the wolf squeaked in a thin, alien voice. "Let me sleep for the night. I've been separated from the flock and I'm very tired. Let me go." Good Nif Nif asked his brother. "You can let the sheep in," agreed Nuff Nuff. "A sheep is not a wolf." But when the piglets opened the door, they saw not a sheep, but the same toothy wolf. The brothers slammed the door shut and pushed on it with all their might so that the terrible beast could not break in. The wolf was very angry. He could not outwit the piglets. He threw off his sheepskin and roared, "Well, wait a minute. There will be nothing left of this house this hour." And he began to blow. The house shook a little. The wolf blew a second, then a third, then a fourth time. Leaves flew off the roof, the walls shook, but the house still stood. Only when the wolf blew a fifth time did the house stagger and collapse. The door alone stood for some time in the midst of the ruins. The piglets ran away in terror. Their legs were weakened with fear, every bristle trembled, and their noses were dry. The brothers raced toward Naf's house. The wolf caught up with them in great leaps and bounds. Once he almost grabbed Nif Nif's hind leg, but Nif Nif pulled it away in time and picked up the pace. The wolf pushed on, too. He was sure that this time the piglets would not run away from him. But he was unlucky again. The piglets quickly ran past the big apple tree without even hitting it. And the wolf did not have time to turn and ran into the apple tree, which showered him with apples. One hard apple hit him between the eyes. A big lump sprang up on the wolf's forehead. Nif Nif and Nuff Nuff ran up to Naf's house, dead or alive. The brother let them in. The poor piglets were so frightened that they could not say anything. They silently ran under the bed and hid there. Nuff Nuff guessed at once that the wolf was chasing them. But he had nothing to fear in his stone house. He quickly bolted the door, sat down on a stool and sang loudly, "No beast in the world. No beast, no beast, no beast, no beast won't open this door. This door, this door, this door." But just then there was a knock at the door. "Who's knocking?" Nuff Nuff asked in a calm voice. "Open up without talking," came the rough voice of a wolf. "No way. I won't," Nuff Nuff answered in a firm voice. "Oh, yeah. Well, hold on. Now I'll eat all three of you." Try it. Nuff Nuff answered from behind the door, without even getting up from his stool. He knew he and his brothers had nothing to fear in the sturdy stone house. So the wolf sucked in more air and blew as hard as he could. But no matter how hard he blew, not even the smallest stone moved. The wolf turned blue with exertion. The house stood like a fortress. Then the wolf began to shake the door. But the door wouldn't budge either. The wolf scratched the walls of the house with his claws and gnawed the stones from which they were built, but he only broke his claws and spoiled his teeth. The hungry and angry wolf had no choice but to go away. But then he looked up and suddenly saw a big, wide chimney on the roof. Aha! Through this pipe I will get into the house, rejoiced the wolf. He carefully climbed onto the roof and listened. The house was quiet. I'll still eat fresh piglet today, thought the wolf, and licked his lips and went down the chimney. But as soon as he started to go down the chimney, the piglets heard a rustle. And when soot began to fall on the lid of the cauldron, clever Naf immediately guessed what was wrong. He quickly rushed to the cauldron, where water was boiling on the fire, and tore off the lid. Welcome, said Nuff Nuff and winked at his brothers. Nif Nif and Nuff Nuff had already calmed down and were smiling happily at their clever and brave brother. The piglets did not have to wait long. The wolf, black as a chimney sweep, plunged straight into the boiling water. He'd never been in so much pain before. His eyes popped out of his forehead and his fur stood on end. With a wild roar, the scalded wolf flew down the chimney back to the roof, rolled down it to the ground, tumbled 4 times over his head, rode his tail past the locked door, and rushed into the forest.